I am 85 years old. I am a Vietnam veteran, and there was a time in my life when I sat alone in my own house with a bottle on the table, my wife gone, my boy gone with her, and I honestly thought that was how my story was going to end. No parade, no redemption, no lesson. Just one more old veteran drinking himself into the ground in a quiet room nobody wanted to walk into anymore. I remember looking at the front door after she left, just looking at it, like maybe if I stared long enough, it would open again and I could take back everything that had happened in that house. But doors do not work that way, neither do people. My wife left because she had run out of ways to save me. My son left because he was too young to have any say in it. And I stayed there with my anger, my pride, and enough whiskey to keep lying to myself for another few years. That is the part people do not like to hear when they talk about veterans. They like the uniform, they like the photograph, they like the words duty and sacrifice. They do not much care for the part where a man comes home and slowly poisons the life he prayed he would get back. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me go back. I was not drafted, that is the truth. I went on my own, signed my own name. Nobody had to force me. Back then, that meant something to me. I was young enough to think a hard road had to be the right road. Young enough to believe that if your country called, a man ought to answer. Young enough to believe courage and understanding were the same thing. They are not. I thought I was doing something honorable, and maybe in some ways I was. But if I am honest, it was not just honor. It was pride, too. And a little fear of being left behind, and a little foolishness, the kind young men wear like a clean shirt and do not even know it. At that age, you do not understand what a decision can cost. You just like how it sounds when you say it out loud. Vietnam. Back then, that word sounded like distance, like purpose, like becoming somebody. It did not sound like wet heat. It did not sound like fear that lives in your chest so long it starts paying rent. It did not sound like the kind of memory that comes home with you and refuses to leave. I came back in one piece, at least if you looked quick. No missing limbs, no Purple Heart, no band playing either. Just another young man home again, carrying more than he knew how to put down. And for a while, life looked like it might turn out all right. Then I met her. Good woman, patient, funny, pretty in that quiet kind of way that sneaks up on a man until one day he realizes he has been looking for her face in every room. She had a laugh that made a house feel warmer. She could stand in a kitchen with dishwater on her hands and somehow make the whole world feel less mean. I loved her, plain and simple, still do in a different way now. We got married, had a child, and for a little while I really believed that was it, that I had made it out, that whatever happened over there was going to stay over there. That is another lie men tell themselves when they do not know any better. I got a job, worked hard, paid bills, came home tired, did what I thought a husband and father was supposed to do. I was never perfect, but I was there, and for a while that counted for something. Then little things started happening. Not all at once. That would have been easier. At least then you could point to one day and say, there, that is where the trouble began. No, it came in slow. A noise would hit me wrong, a dropped plate, a slammed cabinet, the television too loud, my son running into the room before I heard him coming. My whole body would tense before my mind knew why. I started getting irritated too fast, snapping over nothing, going quiet in a bad way. That kind of quiet that makes everybody else in the room start speaking softer without realizing it. My wife saw it before I did, or maybe she saw it before I was willing to. She would ask what was wrong. I would tell her, nothing. She would ask if I was all right. I would say, I'm fine. That might be the most dangerous sentence a man can say when he is falling apart. I'm fine. You can hide behind those two words for years. I did. Then I started drinking. At first I called it winding down, called it taking the edge off, called it helping myself sleep. And if a man lies to himself in a calm enough voice, he can make a bad habit sound almost reasonable. One drink became two. Two became enough that the bottle was not really a choice anymore. It was just part of the evening. I was not a cheerful drunk. I was not the singing type. I got mean in small ways, sharp, cold, impatient, sometimes loud, sometimes worse than loud. You do not have to hit a wall to make a house feel unsafe. You can do it with your mood, with your silence, with the way everybody learns to listen for your footsteps before they decide how to act. A child learns that kind of weather fast. My wife tried to help me. I need to say that clearly. She tried. She talked to me. She pleaded with me. She asked me to see a doctor, asked me to talk to somebody, asked me to stop, asked me what had happened to me. And I did not hear her, or maybe I heard her and hated being seen that clearly. That is ugly, but it is true. When somebody loves you enough to hold up a mirror, sometimes you do not thank them. Sometimes you punish them for making it harder to lie to yourself. I did that. Not with my hands, but with my temper, with the drinking, with the feeling in that house that nobody could fully relax because Dad might come in already irritated at the sound of people living around him. That is on me, not on the war, not on her, on me. She stayed longer than she should have. I know that now. At the time, I called it nagging, called it overreacting, called it all kinds of things except what it really was. It was love, tired love, scared love, but love. Then one day she left, took our son with her, took a few bags, took the last bit of calm that house had in it. I wish I could tell you that was the moment I woke up, that I fell to my knees, that I poured the bottles down the sink, that I called somebody and told the truth. I did not. That is the shame of it. I just sank deeper. For a long time after she left, I kept drinking. Not because I was heartbroken in some noble way, because I was angry, ashamed, and not nearly honest enough to admit either one. I blamed her for a while. That is what weak men do when they are too frightened to look directly at themselves. I told myself she gave up on me. I told myself she did not understand. I told myself she had taken my child away. There is an ugly kind of comfort in blame. It lets you feel wronged when you are the one doing the damage. Years went by like that. Not good years either. Not even memorable ones. Just gray years. Bottle years. Shame years. The kind of years a man loses one evening at a time. Then I got a call about a man I had served with. Not my closest friend, no, but close enough that I still knew his face the second I heard his name. The news came through another veteran who had heard it from family. Said he had been drinking hard for years. Said his body finally gave out. Heart, liver, maybe kidneys too. By then it hardly mattered. The bottle had been taking bites out of him a long time before the doctors named anything. I sat with that news a long time. Because the truth was, I could see myself too clearly in it. Not in some poetic way, in a plain way, a frightening way. Another veteran, another man who came home, another man who never quite came back, another man who mistook slow dying for coping. And I remember thinking, real plain, real cold. That is me in a few years, maybe less. No dramatic music, no lightning bolt from heaven, just a thought landing hard in a tired man's chest. That was the turn. Not the miracle, not the cure, the turn. I started going to meetings, veteran meetings first, places where men sat in metal chairs with coffee that tasted like old pennies and told the truth in pieces. Some of them had better stories than I did. Some had worse. Most of them had the same look in their eyes. That look men get when they have spent years pretending they are all right. The first time I sat in one of those rooms, I felt something loosen. Nobody was showing off. Nobody was trying to sound heroic. Nobody had to explain every little thing from the beginning. A man would say one sentence, just one, and three other men in the room would nod like they had lived inside that exact same sentence. I had not felt understood in a long time. That matters, more than people know. I kept going back, not gracefully either. I was stubborn, embarrassed, still drinking some, trying to quit, failing, trying again. Anybody who tells you recovery is one clean straight line either got lucky or is lying. Mine was messy, but it was movement, and movement counts. Around then I got work in an auto shop. Nothing fancy, no big title, just work. But I liked it. There is something about work you can do with your hands when your mind has been your enemy too long. An engine does not care about your excuses. A busted hose is honest. A stripped bolt is honest. Something is wrong. You find it. You fix it if you can. There was peace in that. Also, engines are easier than people. They usually tell you what is wrong if you listen close enough. Human beings prefer to make you guess for 20 years. That job helped me. The shop had its own smell, oil, rubber, coffee burnt half to death on a hot plate, men talking plain, no speeches, no pretending, just work. And work gave my days shape again. Then, little by little, I started trying to repair what I had broken outside the garage. That was slower. I reached out to my ex-wife first, did not ask for pity, did not ask her to come back, did not hand her my pain like it was a bill she was supposed to help me pay. I just told the truth. I told her she had tried. I told her I saw that now. I told her she was not wrong to leave. I told her if I had been living with the man I was back then, I might have left sooner. That was one of the hardest things I ever said, and one of the most necessary. She did not trust me right away. Thank God she did not. That would have made it a fairy tale. This was not one. Trust comes back slower than regret, a whole lot slower. We started small, a phone call, then another, then coffee, then seeing my son again. That part hurt. Because he had grown, of course he had. Children do not pause out of respect for your regrets. He was polite with me at first, polite, like I was a teacher or a neighbor, not a father. That cuts a man deep, especially when he knows he earned it. But I stayed. That was the work then, not speeches, not grand promises, staying. Showing up when I said I would, calling when I said I would, leaving when it was time to leave, not demanding closeness on a schedule that only made sense to me. Just proving, slowly, that I was becoming somebody you did not have to brace yourself for. Years went by like that too. Better years this time. Not easy ones, not magical ones, but honest ones. Now I live in a decent house, middle sort of place. Not fancy, not falling apart. A driveway, a kitchen, a few tools in the garage, photographs that do not cut quite as sharp as they used to. I still go to veteran gatherings now and then, still sit with men who understand some silences better than most folks ever will. And every so often a school asks me to come talk. That still makes me laugh a little. Me, standing in front of teenagers. Half of them look at me like I might start talking about the Civil War if they give me too much room. The other half look like they are wondering if old people were invented before electricity. But I go. I do not go to give them slogans. I do not go to polish war into something shiny. And I sure do not go to tell them pain automatically makes a man wise. It does not. I go because I know what a young man can believe when he is not yet paid for those beliefs. I tell them a man can volunteer for something before he understands the size of it. I tell them surviving is not the same thing as coming home whole. I tell them some wounds do not show up in photographs. And I tell them asking for help is not weakness. That one matters to me. So does this one. If somebody loves you and tries to help while you are slipping, listen early. Do not make them drag you to the edge of losing everything before you decide to tell the truth. That is one lesson I learned late. Too late for some things, not too late for all of them. My ex-wife was never the villain. She was not cruel. She was not cold. She was not the one who quit. She tried. I did not listen. That is on my conscience, and it should be. Age gives a man many things if he stays around long enough. A bad back, slower mornings, a deep respect for chairs with armrests. But if he is lucky, it also gives him honesty. And honesty is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is just finally calling something by its right name. I was suffering. That was true. I was also making other people suffer. That was true too. For a long time I hid behind the first truth so I would not have to face the second one. You cannot heal that way. These days I still think about Vietnam sometimes. Not every day, not every hour, but it is there. In certain weather, in certain smells, in certain dreams, in a photograph, in a face across the room at a veterans hall. But it does not own the whole house anymore. That is the difference. I used to think if war did not kill you, then you beat it. I do not think that now. Sometimes war waits. Sometimes it follows a man home and sits quietly in his marriage. Sometimes it gets into his drinking. Sometimes it gets into the way his child looks at him. Sometimes it almost convinces him he is finished. And sometimes, if he gets honest enough, if he gets help soon enough, if he is lucky enough to still have time, he can come back. Not perfectly, not all the way, not like nothing happened, but enough. Enough to make coffee in peace, enough to call his grown child without shame, enough to sit in a classroom and tell the truth without dressing it up, enough to look at the evening light in his own house and not feel haunted by every room. That is enough for me now. I am not proud of every year behind me. Some of them I would take apart bolt by bolt if life worked like a repair shop. It does not. You work with what is left. And what is left, if you are blessed, can still be a life. A quieter one, a humbler one, but a life. So when people ask me what war cost me, I do not always know how to answer in one sentence. It cost me sleep. It cost me years. It cost me peace. It cost me time with the people I loved. It cost me the chance to be the husband and father I should have been from the start. but it did not take everything. That is the part I hold on to. It did not take everything. I am still here, still sober, still trying, still sorry for some things, still grateful for others, still trying to be the kind of man my wife once hoped I was, the kind of father my son deserved, the kind of old veteran who tells the truth instead of hiding behind a uniform and a couple of old stories. And if there is any wisdom in all of it, maybe it is this. A man can go to war for reasons that make perfect sense when he is young. Duty, pride, country, courage, fear of being left behind. Then he can come home and lose himself in ways nobody warned him about. And even then, he is not always finished. Sometimes a man can still come back, late, scarred, ashamed, smaller than he once imagined he would be, but back. If he gets honest, if he accepts help, if he stops blaming everybody else for the wreckage, if he is lucky enough to still have somebody willing to answer the phone when he finally tells the truth. That happened for me. Not cleanly, not quickly, not perfectly, but it happened. And now, when I stand in a classroom or a school gym and some young face looks at me like maybe I know something worth hearing, I keep it simple. I tell them not every wound bleeds where people can see it. I tell them not every strong man stays strong by himself. And I tell them if they ever find themselves slipping, they better speak up before the silence in their life gets louder than their own voice. That is about as much wisdom as I have. The rest is just living. Making coffee, checking the mail, turning a wrench, calling my son, sitting with old veterans, watching evenings settle into a house that finally feels like home again. That last part took me a long time, but I earned it.